What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another Tottenham update. January the 17th, so we're getting into the latter stages of the transfer window now, and still no deals have been done. But we do have some more rumours to talk about. And let's start off with Harry Kane. As Paul O'Keefe says, Spurs won't block a third attempt from Kane to leave, and Harry is not engaging in talks about renewing his contract at Tottenham. So it looks as though this could be the final year for Harry Kane in a Tottenham shirt.
Yeah, and if we can't convince him to sign, if he doesn't sign, I think we're selling him in the summer. I think it makes sense. He's 30 years of age. He can command fairly decent fee. He's not the quickest anymore, as much as he's a world-class striker, and obviously we're better off keeping him. From a financial point of view, it completely makes sense to sell him in the summer if he's not going to sign a contract. And the last hope, I think, and we all knew the last hope was that Conte would be a success here, and that would convince Kane, they'd have that winning mentality aligned. That would convince Kane to stay at Spurs. But with things going awry on that front right now, obviously nothing's definitely happened just yet, but with things going wrong at this time, it looks as why is there a reason for Kane to stay? I think he's not getting any younger. He doesn't want to risk staying at Tottenham his whole career without winning anything. He'll have left being the top goal scorer of all time, so he would have cemented his status as a Tottenham legend by the time he leaves. Then he's looking at people like Kyle Walker and other players who are left and have won so many trophies, and he'll think, I want a piece of that now, and it'll be his time in his career to get that. So I think right now all arrows point to him leaving. There is still time for it to change, but I do believe right now he's probably thinking about the next step in his career.
Absolutely, and he should do, because at the moment, the way it's looking, this club is going absolutely nowhere anytime fast. And with him being on 30 years old and, not that many years left in his career, I completely accept it, and I won't begrudge him whatsoever for leaving this football club. He's given this club so many good years of service. He's going to leave as top goal scorer in this club's history, more than Jimmy Greaves, which at one point when Kane first broke into the team, you probably thought no one's ever going to break this Jimmy Greaves record, and he's come in, he's done it. And look, I'm not going to begrudge him just because the way and the state of this football club at the moment, as much as it's going to hurt this summer, as much as how painful it's going to be to see Harry Kane leave this club, this is where the hierarchy have left us, our best players leaving. So it feels like we've gone back in time 20 years and Spurs are selling their best players to rivals in the Premier League, and Arsenal top of the league. It's just so hard to watch. It really is. But like you say, there is a small window of opportunity now where they have a chance to convince him, but I'm not holding my breath, to be honest.
Yeah, I think obviously we're not going to win the league, but if we can win a trophy, maybe, and also convince maybe Conte to stay, maybe there's some hope that he can still sign that dotted line and stay the long term. Maybe if we do win a trophy, that can convince him that he can win stuff here. But at the moment, the fact that it's going wrong with Conte is not good at all, and that was kind of the breaking point. When Mourinho left, he had really aligned with Mourinho. When he left and we appointed Nuno, you saw how it affected him. And I think it would affect him again if Conte leaves and a different manager comes in. Yeah,
it'll be the straw that breaks the camel's back if Conte leaves, that's for sure. But let's move on. Let's talk about Pedro Porro once again. Romano says that discussions took place between Spurs and Sporting for Pedro Porro in the last 24 hours, and it will continue later this week. Tottenham will insist. Porro does dream of the Premier League, and it's on the clubs now, so not much has changed in that situation. Tom Barkley says he understands that Spurs had fresh talks with Sporting Lisbon last night, but there is still a gap in the valuation between the two clubs, as per reports in Portugal. And there was a report that came out last night from Sean Walsh, who's a journalist, and he says Spurs believed to be willing to meet the €45 million release clause if it's paid in instalments, and some within the sporting network, in the sporting board, are now tempted by such an offer.
Yeah, I mean, we're literally talking about Pedro Porro all the time, and then we're hearing they're far away from the valuation. Now we're hearing maybe they're prepared to pay the fee and the release clause in instalments. I mean, how hard can this deal be? It's really really not talking about lots and lots of money. I know 35 million or whatever sounds like a lot of money, but in this day and age in football, it's really not going to break the bank. So I think if we believe he's the one, just get it over the line. We need him now. We can't wait. And I feel like we're waiting for I think we're waiting to get rid of one or two, I reckon, before we bring him in. That's the delay, I think. I can't see us being really held up by that kind of money.
I'm just so sick and tired of just saying the same things over and over again about Pedro Porro. I mean, we were first linked with him before the window even opened, and it's the same update then as it is now.
Literally no different.
There's no difference whatsoever. I mean, just get the deal done, for God's sake. Next up is another right wing back in Denzel Dumfries, who we've been speaking about quite a bit this window as well. And journalist Marco Barzaghi says that Tottenham have called their interest in Pedro Porro and will now switch attentions to Denzel Dumfries. And his agent was travelling in the last 24 hours to London to negotiate with Tottenham.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think he's probably a backup option. I think he's a good player, Denzel Dumfries, but I don't think he's as good as some other options out there. And I think he's potentially, I don't know about overpriced, but I think you're spending decent money where I do believe, like, I'd rather go for, like, a different kind of profile than someone like Denzel Dumfries, in my opinion. But
what do you mean by that?
Someone who's we're going to spend a lot of money on him, like, relative to, like, basically, would I rather spend like 40 million or something, or 35 million or something like that on Dumfries, whereas when I don't think long term he's going to be a right wing back for us, just because he's an upgrade on what we have right now? Or would I rather spend on, like, a younger one who has potential to grow and be a better player,
like Jed Spence?
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, but like Porro, I think right now is different. I think he's ready to be that right wing back, but I think Dumfries is like it's like a stopgap, in my opinion. I don't see Porro as a stopgap.
How old is Dumfries?
26, something like that. 25,
Why can't he be here for the long term?
Because I don't think he's that good.
But I thought we spoke in the summer after his World Cup displays and
World Cup in the winter.
Yeah, in the winter, and speaking about him as a candidate that we would very much like at Spurs.
I think he's.
Has your opinions changed in the past 6 months?
No, I think he's my opinion's always been the same. He's better than what we have now, but I don't think he's a long-term solution for us.
Okay, interesting.
That's my opinion. Look, what he's good at is he's fast. He's good at getting in the box, but he's not particularly good at passing, not particularly good at crossing, not particularly good at defending. He's basically like a bit like a Matt Doherty with pace, which is okay. But I think Porro is better at dribbling. He's better at crossing, a really good crosser of the ball, and I think is more suited to what we need.
Okay, fair enough. Next up, we're going to talk about Arnaut Danjuma. Matti Moretto says that Danjuma has been offered to Tottenham Hotspur. We've seen him being linked with the likes of West Ham and Bournemouth as well in this window. Players played 10 games this season, only 2 goals last season, 23 games and getting on the score sheet 10 times. Is he a player which tickles your fancy?
Yeah, I liked him last season. Was last season when they got to the semi-final? Yeah.
They won it, didn't they? Or they got to
the semi-final of the Champions League.
Oh, Champions League.
Yeah. Was that last season? Yeah, 2 seasons ago they got to they won Europa League. I remember seeing him thinking he looked really good. Things I don't think have gone as good this season, and of course he's still fairly young. Not that young, but he's decent. But I haven't seen enough of him to say that I think he's exactly what we want. I think that kind of player, like a player who can play on both wings, would help, and is versatile and he's quick. But why are Villarreal so willing to let him go? I would ask question marks on that.
Yeah, it's a good question.
And why are Bournemouth the only team leading the race for him?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at his career stats. He was at Bournemouth for 1920 and 2021. I think both years in the Championship. In the Championship, he got 17 goals in 35 games and 7 assists.
Pretty good.
Which is great numbers, to be honest. But look, I don't know how viable these links are, but I think he's a player. Would I want to see him at Spurs? I'd probably like to see other options ahead of him, but I wouldn't be against bringing him through the door. Next up,
I'd much rather we go for someone like him than like Dan James on deadline day. You know
100%,
what I mean?
100%. Next up, Leandro Trossard. Andy Naylor of The Athletic says that Tottenham made a verbal offer for Trossard of £12 million, which was rejected by Brighton, who value him much higher. Alex Crook says Brighton want at least 25 million for Trossard. Nazar Kinsella says that Arsenal have joined the race to sign Leandro Trossard.
Good player. He's having a great season for Brighton. 12 million is a derisory offer, no doubt about it. That is taking the piss, that kind of offer. I think we're probably seeing him unsettled and think maybe we'll lowball it and see what we can do, and if they're desperate to sell. I wouldn't overspend on him. I wouldn't want to spend big money like over. I think 25 million would probably be the limit. I wouldn't want to spend anything more than that because I don't think his value would be more than that, to be honest, for his quality. But I do think he would be a good option if we were to get him in. He would consume a few wing back, left mid, potentially number 9 if really desperate. So he covers a few positions and he's good tactically. I just don't think. Look, he's 28. He's obviously hit his ceiling. I don't think he's getting any better. I think he's a good player, but I don't think you're going to like. At least if you get a younger player, they've got the potential to grow. But I think with Trossard, you're going to get. You're getting a good player, but that's it.
I'd love Trossard through the door, and he's got a better on what he has last season, so why can't he get better again next season with better coaching and better players around him? I don't see why not. I like the abilities that he brings, and I'll definitely welcome him through the door. And at 25 million, I think is a really good deal for Trossard. So I for sure would bring him through the door, and I really like him as a player. So Trossard is a yes from me. Next up is Nicolozaniolo once again. Alfredo Padula says Roma could sell Zaniolo in January for around 30 million euros. Tottenham are the club showing the strongest interest at the moment.
And obviously we were very heavily interested within the summer. Didn't get a deal done. I don't know how he's done, to be honest, for Roma this season. If he's because there were question marks over his injuries and stuff like that. He was brilliant in the Conference League. Seemed to get over those injuries last season. I don't know if he's carried on that good form into this season for Zaniolo.
Well, last season he only got 2 goals and 2 assists. This season he's only got 1 goal and 0 assists in only 13 games this season.
So, okay, so he's not been in the side that much. That's less encouraging, to be honest, because I would have hoped he would have really kicked on from last season, where he had some really great performances in the Conference League, and turning into that player that he's touch of class, Zaniolo, when he's fully fit. He's had big problems in the past, but if he's not kicking on massively for Roma this season, I think it's quite a big risk. But then again, he does cover the right wing, and potentially you could be getting a really high quality player there if things go right, but it is a big risk.
It is a big risk. I'd like to see him through the door because I really believe in his qualities, and every time I see him play, he really is eye-catching, to be honest, with the skills that he does have. But it's the injuries that really worry me, to be honest. I think he did already have a big injury this season. He did have one last season as well. Seems to have one every year, and I think he's done his ACL twice already in his career, which is very worrying. So in terms of just a footballer, I would say yes, but there are definitely big reservations about the injury problems that he has had in his career. But again, we'll have to see how this one plays out. But we've been linked with him for so long now.
Yeah, but I'm just feeling like last season, like he came back from injury and was obviously showing like good stuff. But this season, if it doesn't
he got another injury,
yeah, and it doesn't seem that he's kicked on. You know what I mean? And kicked on from last season.
It's true. Next up, we've got David Raya. Sports Pete O says that Brentford goalkeeper Raya says he will assess his future at the club in the summer. He'll assess his future in the summer, and from the reported interest from Tottenham. So, I mean, I think Raya should be our number 1 target. He's young. He could be here for the foreseeable future. He can spend easily the next 10 years at this club as number 1 goalkeeper. Brilliant with his feet. Modern day goalkeeper. I really like him.
Yeah, I've been impressed whenever I've seen him. I really like the look of David Raya. I think he's a really good shot stopper as well. He's got really good command of his penalty area. He's good at kicking as well. He's really been consistent for Brentford for the last 18 months since he's been in the Premier League, and he was really good in the Championship as well. I think it's all culminated in him getting a call up for Spain in the World Cup, so they're starting to show their appreciation for him ahead of people like David De Gea as well. So I think he should be near the top, if not the top candidate for Spurs replacing Lloris.
Who should be kind of up there with him? You got Sanchez from Brighton.
You got Sanchez. You got obviously look at Oblak seriously because his contract's running out if he's willing to come here, and we can definitely turn his fortunes around because he hasn't had the best time recently. Obviously, Diogo Costa from Porto. You have your reservations whether he's Premier League proven, but he's young, he can grow. I think he could be a very good option. As you say, Sanchez. And then I guess people like Pickford would be stopgaps. I wouldn't want Pickford to be our keeper for the next 10 years, you know what I mean? But maybe Pickford for a few years if we're really struggling in options. He's in homegrown, so I guess that's a decent option. But other than that, I don't know. They're not too many. Like Nick Pope, you're not going to be able to get him out of Newcastle. So if you're looking at an English goalkeeper, you're limited if we're looking for homegrown.
May as well just sign the whole Brighton team while we're at it, to be honest. Get Trossard in, get Mitoma in, get Roberto Sanchez in. I mean, may as well just sign the whole of Brighton.
Get De Zerbi in as well.
Yeah, exactly. Next up, let's talk about Jed Spence. Sky Sports Lyle says that Southampton are looking at right wing-back options, and Jed Spence, on loan from Tottenham, is being considered. What, do they not value Kyle Walker-Peters anymore? What's going on?
Playing on the left. Look, I think we might be waiting on Spence to go out on loan before we sign someone. I think that might be one of the hold-up things.
Why?
Because I don't think we're gonna have full right backs in the squad. I just think
He doesn't play anyways. May as well not be in the squad.
I know how the club operates. They don't want full right backs in the squad. That's how they've always operated. Not that position specifically, but they don't want an overstuffed squad like that. Like for example in the summer, like even though we know that Hill doesn't play a lot, we're not going to sign a forward until we get rid of Hill. And that's how the club usually operates. So I think we're waiting to get rid of one of Emerson or Spence before we really go hard on the right wing back, and it might be late in the window.
They prefer to put the season in jeopardy than sign a player and put one in the reserves or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. Last but not least, Anthony Gordon, as Fabrizio Romano said last night, that Tottenham are no longer chasing the signing of Everton winger Anthony Gordon, which is music to a lot of Spurs fans' ears, including you.
Yeah, I've never been a massive fan of him. I think he's one who's decent with the potential, but I don't see anything special right now. He's lost his place to the Everton team. I don't know why. But for me, he's had a couple of goals, but I've never seen any special quality. He's now being hounded by the Everton fans, which is surprising to me, to be fair, and it's not nice to see. But I thought 50 million was ludicrous. I'm starting to think even like something like 30 million is ludicrous now. I don't think he's one which I don't see him being a star. I see him being like a decent Premier League player, potentially, like a Dwight McNeil or something, that kind of standard. I don't see him being anything special, to be honest.
Yeah, look, I think I'm coming over more to your thinking a bit because he just hasn't done anything this season, to be honest, and he's been asked to be pretty much Everton's talisman for the majority of the season up until he lost his place in the team. And I don't know, I do kind of get the feeling maybe that if he was in better surroundings, he could get a lot better than what he does. I think he does have attributes that maybe we need, and he could fill in at maybe wing back and attacking midfield as well. But look, I think it's absolutely obvious that we don't want him as our first choice option, but I don't think it would be too bad to have him in and around the squad just to be a backup. But you don't want to spend the money that they want just for a backup. I mean, I would spend max, at the absolute max, 20 million on him. And that's even probably taking it a bit too far. Like 10, 15 million to get him in as a squad player, I think is probably good business. But anything more than that, there's probably no point.
Yeah, but I think you have to realise right now, I think you're probably signing a player that's like Dan James level right now. But obviously Dan James is a lot older than Gordon, so you would assume Gordon would improve a lot more and be a better player, but you'd have to be prepared to be signing a player that kind of level right now.
Well, it's the way the club are going anyway, isn't it? But that is your Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comment section below if you have any thoughts regarding any of the news stories we've brought to you today. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.